Welcome to Trent's Life, the official show of the Joe Moore Award. Now this week I'm joined by big man Mike Golic Jr. to help me break down that monster top 25 matchup between Kansas State and Iowa State. And I take you behind the scenes at a Penn State practice so that you get an inside look at just how good their O-line is going to be. So keep your eyes up, your pads low, and get ready because Trent's Life starts now. Hey, welcome to Trent's Life, where the unsung heroes get the spotlight, and the only thing thicker than our midsections is the brotherhood that binds us. I'm Aaron Taylor, one of your hosts, and each week I'll be joined by fellow members of the Chunky But Hunky Joe Moore Award crew and other O-line experts. Now together, we'll bring line play and O-line culture to life with the kind of credibility that makes O-line coaches nod, but also in a way that players, coaches, and fans of every kind can enjoy. If you want to laugh, learn, or lean into line play, welcome home. We got you. Now, every episode, me and the rest of the love-handled legion will dive headfirst into the gritty yet pretty beauty of Trent's life. We'll talk about the grind, the sweat, the brotherhood, the mano-y-mano gotta-have-it moments that often decide games and seasons. We'll sit down with legendary linemen from college football and the professional ranks, hear from coaches who build men and bright futures, and break down the biggest matchups of the week with our film room segment, The Big Ugly Spotlight. Think of us as your weekly compass. What to watch, who to root for, and maybe even an occasional wink to those with a little extra skin in the game. You know what I'm saying? So now, it's time for our first step, where every great block and every spicy take begins. This is how we'll kick off every show, with the biggest, most topical storylines in college football, setting the tone for everything that follows. Some weeks it'll be a game, a player, or a trend. Other weeks, a coaching move or a cultural shift. But it'll always matter. And for me, this week, it's the damn transfer portal and how it's screwing over our position and our cohesion. The story I like to tell with this is back in two years ago, in 2023, when the University of Washington won the Joe Moore Award, we had this great ceremony. It was right before the college football playoff. They would eventually make it to the national championship game and lose. 2 weeks later, after we present the trophy, we go back to campus to uncrate it and position it, and there's not a single person that was involved with that football team, particularly in the offensive line room, that was there. Their offensive line coach, Scott Huff, went to Alabama and then to the NFL. All the players scattered and went to different places nationwide. Scott later told me, he said, man, the next morning after we lost that game, I had players coming into my office saying, Coach, what do I do? X-school or X-collective or X-player called me and said, hey, we'll give you $100,000 to come. What do I do? I want to stay here. Where do I go? Do I go to Alabama? What Scott told me, he's like, Aaron, I didn't even know if these dudes could play at myself. How in the world were these other people trying to pilfer these guys and pick them before they had even developed? That's what's going wrong with our game today. The transience of the sport of all positions, the offensive line is based on cohesion, on a brotherhood, of building skill and fundamentals that take time. But what we're seeing is the erosion of that, and it's acting like termites, and it's showing up on the field. Case in point, what we're seeing over the last couple years is that when one starter goes down, there's become this force multiplier effect, where you lose one player, but it's like 1.5 or 2x of production that goes down. Texas succumbed to that. Oregon succumbed to that. Notre Dame succumbed to that. And of course, Ohio State did as well. To their credit, they got it figured out towards the end and bounced back maybe better than anybody else aside from Notre Dame. So we're seeing these negative impacts on our position because of the transience. And it's also affecting the lower levels. The group of 5 schools, they put all this time to develop these players, these diamonds in the rough. They get cherry-picked, which is great for them and great to the school that they go to. But now they've got this young player who hasn't had any time to develop. So now they lose his development time. They throw him to the wolves, and things don't often go well. So this whole damn thing is a mess. But I think what's going to happen is we're going to revert back to the mean. What we're starting to see is that the units that stay cohesive, that don't go out into the transfer portal and try to make these wholesale changes, but rather go get 1 or 2 selective pieces, that with guys that still have 2 to 3 years left of tread on their tires are faring better than other teams. It's harder on the front end, but better on the back end. And imagine that in today's world, being patient and choosing hard is paying off. One of the schools that's done that maybe better than anybody is the Penn State Nittany Lions. And a couple days ago, I had a chance to go to their practice, and boy, did I like what I saw. All right, practice just ended, and I'm with Penn State alum, former offensive lineman Landon Tengwall. Landon, you know this team as well as anybody. You cover it better than anybody out there. We just watched practice. What did we learn?
It was physical. I'll tell you what, it was a lot of high energy, and when you're this deep into camp, Aaron, I think we both know how you start to get a little demoralized. It's hard to put those pads on every day. You're saying, man, I got to go out there again today. But didn't feel like that out here. A lot of great energy, high-level competition too. And you know we were watching the big boys. I mean, this is some of the best offensive, defensive line you're going to find around here. Great competition, obviously getting everybody better. So it was great to see. And I know we're going to talk a little offensive line, but we saw a lot of depth. We saw a lot of guys moving around, playing different positions, guys that might start at right tackle playing right guard, guys playing guard and center. I mean, that's the stuff you want to see. And we talked about it earlier. Guys get injured, guys get banged up. It could be a 16, 17-game season if you make it to the end. So you've got to have some soldiers. And it looks like Penn State's got that. Couple speedy wide receivers, too. We saw that out there.
Well, see, this is what we're doing. He's interviewing me. I'm interviewing him. We're sharing the mic. This is like a combo block on the microphone. It's perfect.
Let's get hip to hip.
Let's go. So, hey, Coach Troutwine just came over and said hello to us after practice, and you mentioned to him the different combinations of players. And I said, hey, is that intentional? And he said, yes. Explain that.
Yeah, so from day one here when I got in here, Coach Trout gives you an offensive line test. You got to go through every single position for every single play and write down their exact footwork, your responsibility, your jobs. So if you play right tackle, you got to know center like the back of your hand, or else you're grading out and you're getting in trouble by Coach Trout. I mean, he drills it into you to know every position, not only so you can play it, he can move guys around, and we saw that all practice long, but at the same time, too, I know what my center's thinking. I know what my right guard is thinking. I know what type of move they're about to do versus this type of front. And I think that's so valuable. You don't get that everywhere. And just Coach Trout is just always driving home the little things. His mantra is NTT, no talent things. The things that take no talent that you can just bust your butt on and make sure that you got those little things right. Your hat placement, your footwork, knowing the play, all those little things you can take care of and are under your control. And he just, like I said, is the reason he's the best in the nation, and took this offensive line, honestly, from somewhat being a punching bag to being one of the best offensive lines in all of college football.
There's no question. I said it earlier today on your show. If Penn State wins the national championship, it'll be because this offensive line led the way. I was really impressed with what I saw, and to your point, there's a physicality that is teached, coached, enforced, reinforced that I saw even in practice in one-on-ones and half line with 9-on-7 and some of the run stuff that they were doing. When you were in Coach Troutwine's room, what did that look like? How did he reinforce that physicality is part of the DNA that we need to bring to the table every Saturday?
Well, a big part of it was we had goals, and we knew to win the Joe Moore Award, you got to bring physicality every day. You got to impose your will, move a man from point A to point B against his will. Favorite quote of any offensive lineman out there. And he just instilled that in us. And I'll tell you, we had Nittany, Penn State's offensive coordinator, run right past us. And he said, you like that? We're doing more running drills than everybody in the nation. They're getting hip to hip, working on combo blocks with the defensive line. A lot of places aren't doing that. So not only is it preached through Coach Troutwine of saying, hey, we got to go out and just be mean. We got to be maulers. But also you see it on the field through the drills and the intent of the coaches of setting up the practice a certain way. And it's just, like I said, it's fun to see the physicality. The guys brought it. Offensive line, working on those pancakes, man. You ain't winning no Joe Moore Award if you ain't pancaking guys, putting them in the dirt. So we saw a good amount of that. Saw some good one-on-one work, too, in pass rush. And like I said, it's when you go against one of the better defensive lines, too, in college football, that's always going to get you better.
So let's talk a little bit about that defensive side of the ball. Jim Knowles, new defensive coordinator, comes in running the 4-2-5. There were some impressive creatures on that side of the field that this offensive line has to block every day that, in my guesstimation, would make them better. This is what we call good on good. I saw 19 out there tearing things up. I saw 33 doing what he always does. There were some other nice players in the middle and some other young pieces. Walk us through what Nittany Lion fans could expect on the defensive side of the ball that's making this O-line so good.
Yeah, let's talk about up front first. Zane Durant, number 28, is going to be an All-American defensive tackle. Maybe he might say 6 foot, but I don't even know about that. But let me tell you, he uses it to his advantage. He can find ways. He's thick. I told you, he put me down on this field out here. That's what ended my career out here, Aaron. And he plays so low. And when you notice when you're going against those smaller guys, I think it's almost harder because you can't get under him and dig him out. I mean, he's got that natural leverage, and then also he can get skinny. He can shift his hips to the sideline and get back vertical in a second, and he does things that a 6'5", 320-pound defensive tackle cannot do. So he understands how to use his disadvantages and make them advantages. Now, you talked about Dennis Sutton, number 33. We've had a great line of just elite defensive ends. Dennis Sutton's up next, led the nation in TFLs for a while last season before he got a little banged up. I mean, that guy came in as a 5-star, and he's just been a dude ever since. So got him out there. Zariah Fisher on the opposite defensive end. That's been kind of a big question for Penn State is who is going to be that guy? Because we've always had an elite defensive end, but they always have a great sidekick. And so that's kind of the question coming into this year. Who can be that guy? Zariah Fisher has faced a couple injuries. He's in his 6th year, but coming in just a veteran dude, great pass rusher. I've told you, so good at understanding and feeling where the weight is and taking you where you want to go and working that move. That's been beautiful to see. Chaz Coleman, number 19. A lot of you might not even know who that is. You will soon. Let me tell you, I'm hearing talk that one day top 10 pick. I mean, I'm hearing comparisons to Chop. I'm hearing Chop Robinson, Abdul Carter, all of it. I saw it out here. He put one of the filthiest spin moves I've ever seen in these one-on-one drills. I'm excited about young Chaz Coleman. And then, you talked about, traditionally Penn State is LBU. We run a 4-3. We are in a 4-2-5 this year with Jim Knowles' defense. It's a little bit more exotic. There's a lot more blitz looks. They mixes up the coverage. You have that 5th DB. But, what's so exciting about that is you can toy with these offenses a little bit. And, I think we saw it out there. The blitzes they were bringing, they were getting some guys home free, and it makes both sides better. You got Kodo Nicky and Jim Knowles, 2 guys that, they scheme it up now, and it was fun to watch. And I think the biggest thing, a lot of people are saying, hey, we've heard in the past that it's hard to install Jim Knowles' defense. It takes forever. That's the word on the street. Well, the good news is he's coming into his 3rd team where he gets to install his defense, which means he's been through it. He understands what has worked in the past, what hasn't worked in the past, and just starting to kind of fine-tune how to install that defense into a brand new team. I was talking to senior captain Dom DeLuca, and he said it's coming along real nicely, even better than he thought. The guys are really taking to the defense. Like I said, the blitzes and coverages, Knowles admitted they're complex, but it seems like it's really getting implemented and installed pretty well.
It was a lively practice, right? Guys had the day off yesterday, so they're Freddie fresh legs out here, a little bit of pep in the step, but there was a lot of jawing back and forth. The defense is very vocal, very good energy. That's typical, but you don't always see that at all places. I read that as a confident defense. So this good-on-good notion and what James Franklin has put together in all position groups with the experience, with the talent, with the offensive line, the running game, the vertical shots, all of the shifts, trades, and motions, that stuff – they got him today. Jim Knowles his unit on there was swimming a little bit because you have to communicate when that goes on. But all that's going to do, you want to look bad here so you can figure it out and have the answers so that when you open with Nevada, you have some answers to those questions when you're figuring those things out. So it was really impressive what I saw today. This is the 2nd time Landon and I've been back. The first time was 1991. We lost. That was not such a good night. I experienced the whiteout. It sucked. So it's much better circumstances with me being here today with you.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you having me out here once again. Great atmosphere. There's a reason they call it Happy Valley, Aaron. Might not always been happy for you coming here as a player, but we have a good time, beautiful weather, and a great practice. And yet, Coach Franklin, just want to echo what you said of always competing. We start out practice with a competition period. We end with a competition period, and it's always good on good. And that's why he gets the most out of his guys. And when you got Nolan Rucci, one of the best tackles in the country, going against Dennis Sutton, one of the best DNs in the country, only good things can come from that.
All right, folks. Well, this is what you get with Trent's Life All Access. Smash that subscribe button like it's the last rib on the table. Our next guest is the younger half of TV Sports First Family. Spent his playing days battling D linemen as fiercely as that hairline's been holding on to that full body look. You know what I'm talking about? He's one of Notre Dame's finest dudes, though. He and his family host a prestigious subpar golf tournament in South Bend each year, raising big money for local charities. This kid's been a rising star in the business from day one. Got diverse talents, too. He can dissect third medium with the same expertise as he can Love Island episodes, which is probably why he was just named TNT Sports lead Big 12 analyst for their brand new coverage this season. He's a staunch believer, maybe even the loudest, that boneless wings are in fact not wings. And he once claimed he could eat his weight in Taco Bell Crunch Wraps during bye week, and unfortunately fell just 2 wrappers short of glory. Without any further ado, the purveyor of the Thick Six movement sweeping the nation, a trend that may one day end up in the Chucksonian Institute, and here to help us break down the Big 12's make-or-break Week 0 showdown with Iowa State and Kansas State before most of the nation's even broken camp, my good buddy and Joe Moore Award voting committee member, Mike Golic Jr. Mike, welcome to the first episode of Trench Life in the Big Ugly Spotlight.
Boy, with an introduction like that, we should just cut the episode there. I feel like we're not going to say anything better than you were able to right there. I don't know if anyone in my own family could describe me that well, so thanks, man. Good to see you.
It's good to see you, too. I was a big fan of Two Truths and a Lie, so that might have inspired a little bit. Some of that was true, some of it wasn't. But the Love Island part.
The reality TV part in the college football, absolutely there. The boneless wings, you know what, maybe I'm softening a bit in my old age, the stance on that. So we'll see. I'm sure eventually those kind of things will work their way into Trench Life. But for now, very excited. The Aer Lingus Kickoff Classic, going to be an absolute banger. Farmageddon exported to Dublin, Ireland. What a world we live in.
Dude, what a game this was, Mike, at the end of last year, the last regular season game. Of course, Iowa State won, got them to 10 wins. They would go on to have 11 wins, the first time in program history for either of those double-digit milestones. But now how we ended is how we're going to start. How about this big mega matchup in the Big 12 to kick off the season in Week 0?
It's incredible. Like you said, 2 teams that know each other really well, 2 programs. Like, it's not like you're dealing with coaching staff turnover and things like that. Chris Klieman on one side and what you've seen on the other side at Iowa State with Matt Campbell for so long, a decade now of his tenure. It's amazing the identities that these programs have, where even with some of the moving parts and some of the different turnover that we'll talk about here, you go into each season feeling like you've got a really good idea of generally what you're going to see. And in this case, it's going to be 2 really consistent offensive lines and 2 of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12.
So I want to get here on the whiteboard, and this is how we do it, man. We keep it real. This is down and dirty, baby. I'm actually in a Courtyard Marriott. Shout out to the Kelsey brothers.
Big ups.
Love you, love you, love you. All right, so this first play that we're going to see with Iowa State, or with Kansas State, rather, they're going to be in this formation here. They're going to have an offset tight end. What you're going to notice about John Heacock and the defense that he likes to run is a 3-3-5, meaning 3 down linemen, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 linebackers. If there is a 3rd or 4th linebacker, then they'll only do 4 DBs. They play around with that, but they run a stack, and it creates a lot of problems because you have these bubbles, as you see. It can cause problems, but Kansas State had a good plan on how to be able to attack that. They stack the Mike backer there. They bring out the Will linebacker here. They bring the free safety. He's lurking. He can play run or he can play pass. You have the strong safety. He's down here lurking. Kind of get a 2-way play. But what's going to make this play go, and this is what's really interesting here, is you're going to see on the snap of the ball what's called orbit motion. The cornerback's going to come here like it's orbit, but he's going to return. Sometimes they call it whip mode. They call it different things. This is the whole key to the play, because when he comes inside, everybody starts to boss over. They respond and react to what's going on. The cornerback will come in, and he's the key player. Keep your eye on him. What happens next? The ball gets snapped. The back takes this track. He comes through. The offensive line up front is blocking in this direction. The quarterback, the right tackle is going to come in and influence block there, and then Avery Johnson's going to take off. Now what happens, the receiver is going to be here, and he's going to be in what's called phase. What should happen is that the receiver should go here, and then they option this cornerback that's came in. The corner comes here, he pitches it. There's nobody on the hash, and this was dialed up beautifully. First play of the game could have been a touchdown. Instead, it was a catastrophic fumble. But this is the sort of dialed up stuff that fans can expect. That's the beautiful game within the game that's really fun to watch.
Yeah, completely agree. And that's something that, to your point about the way motion affects the looks for the offensive line, gets communicated often. I remember we were fortunate when I was on campus, Olin Kreutz, who had been coached by Harry Heastand, who was my O-line coach my last year at Notre Dame, came in and watched film with a couple of us and talked to us about the importance of understanding the play call, what was tagged on it motion-wise, and how that was going to influence your picture. So if I'm an offensive lineman, I know based on all that action you described, those linebackers are going to flow over top, and my job and my goal is to be able to keep them from getting backside. So the path that I take to that second level, how I'm working with the guy next to me up front, all influenced and really helped and aided by knowing what's going on behind us and understanding when that's drilled and when we go over that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday during the week.
All right, let's take a look at this play, Mike. Here we go here. This is a pre-snap. Now, here's the wide receiver that's coming in with the orbit motion. Nope, he's going to return. Look how all of the defenders start to get dragged towards the left side, and the cornerback comes in from the top of the screen right here at the mesh with the quarterback with Avery Johnson, Mike.
Yep, exactly. A little bit of spread option principles here. And now, AT, you know this, quarterback in a spread option. And really one of the things that becomes an issue here is you always hear the term in phase, right? The distance from the quarterback to the option player that's going to be in line with him here, both the distance between the two and also relative location, because this is going to end up being a backward pass where he's located. That's what you want it at, is at the lateral here. But in this situation, and I'll be curious of your read on this, Avery Johnson, what you're taught as the option player is to really threaten that outside shoulder a lot more, and it felt like he had a little bit more cushion he could have eaten into there that might have also gotten him a bit closer to the pitch point.
Take a look. If he's got that ball right here before it hits the ground right there, take a look at the road going down. You've got a wide receiver number one coming over here at the top. You've got a wedge built, and instead it's a crucial turnover. Here's a look from the backside. Take us through what you see here.
Yep, I mean, in the front side, you're blocking it up the same way you would a zone run to the left side there. And the only real difference, like you mentioned, is that right tackle, just trying to get them to influence and come down. But once he sees those guys all crash, he works his way up to the second level. He knows the D lineman's got no chance of getting there, and so he's going to find the faster guy that might have a chance of trying to chase this play down from the backside and get up to that level.
Well, here's another play. They're using, again, motion. They're changing it, and you see the defender that goes with him. That's a tell that this is man coverage. Number 5 is locked into number 86 there, the tight end, one-on-one. The corner comes from the outside, but this is just going to be a case of being able to sort out the blitz. There's some movement up front, but these guys are able to figure out some of that John Heacock stuff where he's going to be bringing people from all different angles. They're going to blitz here and bring people from different levels from the outside. They bring both backers, but because the offensive line is disciplined, because the center pops back, shuffle, slide, and gets a block there, maybe a little bit of a hold, but still a good block. The back's able to be patient and puncture the defense and get his team in a critical situation down into the deep red zone.
Yeah, it's just an incredible understanding of being able to defend your gap. And even in man schemes, like knowing who we're working in combination to and with to be able to sort all this out. And a couple guys, you get lucky. The backer takes himself out running backside and kind of gets walled off by it. But great job there. Great job, too. Just getting square and giving the running back that two-way go. Like DJ Giddens, you see, kind of started to the outside. The defender that's strapped into the offensive lineman sort of peeks outside, and he just puts his foot in the ground and goes.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the Cyclones, baby, and see what these guys bring to the table, because they've got a quarterback in Rocco Beck, man, that I got to tell you, he is so fun to watch, both running the ball, both passing the ball, just with his leadership style, with the way that he plays. He's just a treat as a football player.
No, completely agree. I mean, listen, he's a guy that's been on the field now going into his third year as a starter, has the chance to really put his name alongside the Brock Purdy's of the world in the quarterback record books there. But incredibly tough, losing a couple of big-time receivers, right? Like Jalen Nolan, Jaden Higgins don't live here anymore. They got some transfer guys they're going to try and help offset that because, AT, you look over the years, there's been quality skill players that have come through there. In addition to what we know is the foundation is this is a O-line continuity, tight end movement-based offense that wants to move their chess pieces around, try and get you into mismatches personnel-wise on defense, and then eventually, like this, spread you out and also let some of those big skill athletes go and get work in space against Jordan, linebackers, safeties, guys that may not be able to cover the caliber of tight end you usually have here.
Yeah, and here's a situation where Iowa State's gone empty, and unlike Kansas State, they're electing to throw the football. So you have 3 receivers at the bottom, 2 at the top, so only 5 defenders, or only 5 protectors. So those 5 defenders, sometimes defenses have what's called an empty check. Anytime you see empty, there's a predetermined play where we're going to come after the quarterback because we believe our 5 can beat their 5. It looks like that's what Kansas State was doing here, but the left guard does a tremendous job of staying alive, looking for work, and that's what allows this big play to go, which sets up a touchdown a couple plays later.
Yeah, worst nightmare for me as a former offensive guard interior lineman is seeing this much space out there because empty protection rules, we're looking to block the 5 most dangerous. And in this picture right now, you got the 2 wide ends that obviously are going to be in the purview for everybody, the nose lined up over the center, and then you've got 41 and 32 creeping down in the box. So you would look at them in the picture we have right here and say, those are most dangerous. So we've all got to have an awareness of that because before the snap, we don't know if 32 is going to insert over the guard, if the end's going to crash down and he's going to loop outside. And so you've got to kind of work in those pairs operating under the 5 most dangerous and make sure you keep that relationship between you and your buddy.
You watch 41 there on the left. This is the key block. 70 does a good job of being patient. Now he oversets right there and opens up the inside, but he lunges forward. Look at his right foot that cuts that angle and gets just enough of the backer to keep him off of 54. This linebacker's coming to pick the hip. And as an offensive lineman, when you're picking up stunts, you never want to let that linebacker 41 get to the hip of the adjacent lineman if you're number 70. So even though it's not perfect, it's really effective. You couple that with the fact that the center's doing a good job of resetting his hand right there, knowing he's getting bull rush so he can reestablish leverage. Now they're in the proverbial win situation, which is being hip to hip.
Yeah, I think for both of the guards, you saw it on either side there, both of them, and there's what we're talking about there with the center, coming off late here, and this is having your eyes ready. Like you block the down lineman with your hands and you get ready for the second level with your eyes. And he's always got awareness there, right? As they're passing this off, we've got 2 hands on the down guy right now, but my eyes are up on 41. And as soon as he triggers, I just have to peel off and get just enough of him. 41 kind of declares his hand because you see Rocco Beck dip up a little bit like he's going to throw. It's a really nifty throw by him of being able to duck that shoulder like he's going to tuck it and run and then pull out and have the wherewithal to sort of gunsling that. But 54 sees that and triggers himself to get just enough of a shot on so that you don't have to worry about his hands up in the throwing lane. You don't have to worry about him getting an extra shot on your quarterback. Any chance you have to take body blows off the guy throwing the football is a good one for the guys up front.
But now it's time to have some fun.
Yeah. What we're going to see here is a really good job of like understanding your principles and adjusting on the fly. Carson Hansen is an absolute load at running back for people when he's got the ball in his hands, but not afraid to go find contact here. He sees, all right, in a perfect world, AT, I'd imagine 84 is probably supposed to be crashing down, maybe closer to that linebacker, but that safety's down right in his face on him, manned up, and so he's not going to pass up work to get work. So Carson Hansen hits that gap, sees his guys occupied, knows he's got time and space to make him right, and looks to see the flash of color coming from the inside. The backside of gap scheme plays. That backside linebacker is always the one that can hurt you because right here, we look on the backside, they're working this like a zone backside, 54 and 51. They're trying to zone up to that backside linebacker, but it's messy, and on a lot of gap scheme plays to the front side, when you got a pin down block, you're not going to be able to get through, and so Carson Hansen sees it, puts a shoulder into that guy, and creates the absolute seam they need at the last minute to make this play go.
So this is a road game for both of these teams. I don't know much about football, but what I do know is you better be able to run the football and play some defense if you want to win on the road, especially early when the crowd's going to be going crazy. You've finally hitting somebody. It's early on in the season. The whole world's watching you, and it's a monster of a Big 12 game. My opinion is that the offensive line that plays the best in this game is going to lead the charge, and the quarterbacks might play the supporting role, both in pass protection and in the run game. Both of these lines have to be at their best in the trenches for them to fly home victorious, because there is nothing worse than a long-ass flight after a loss.
Completely agree. Early in the season, especially like we said with a lot of new bodies at wide receiver for both these teams, timing's going to be a little bit off. You got the time change going over there. I got to play in Dublin my fifth-year senior year, and you're groggy all week going over there trying to practice. Things are a little bit different and out of the ordinary, and so having that group to rely on up front, I completely agree, going to be paramount to start the season hot for both these squads.
Well, dude, thanks, man, for coming on and spending some time. You've been a really important member of this voting committee for a long time. You know your stuff as well as anybody, which is why TNT hired you to be their lead analyst for this entire conference. You've been a Joe Moore Award member since Duo was a thing, bro. You're an OG going way back. All right, I'm joined by an East Coast legend, a man that needs no introduction. Bayside, New York's finest, which probably means he's got some mob ties, but we'll talk about that on another show. This is a guy who won the Joe Moore Award in 2020. His Texas unit became a finalist last year. He once taught math in high school at St. Francis, which I'm sure helped him with a lot of the stuff he needs to do with angles and splits on the offensive line. Iona's finest, a Gale, Kyle Flood. Kyle, what in the hell have you been up to, and how's your summer been going?
This summer's been great. This summer, my wife and I are going to celebrate our 25th anniversary here in a couple days. So we had a little family trip to Hawaii. We took the family to Hawaii for the first time. That was a lot of fun. We had never been there. I had been there for a recruiting trip for about 36 hours once, but other than that, we hadn't been there. So we spent some time there. And other than that, we just kind of relax, recharge, eat a lot of Italian food in the Northeast, and then come back ready to go because, well, we are absolutely looking forward to this season. It should be a great one.
I'm curious on what your thoughts are on how the portal has impacted what's going on right now in college football, specifically around the development of our position. We've got a campaign coming out this fall called NIL, but for us, NIL stands for No Individual Lineman. We're going to really lean into the fact that it's all about us, that I am because of us. That's what our tagline is. From your standpoint, how have you successfully been able to navigate the negative impacts on our position from the portal and NIL specifically?
We're a little unique. So in the 4 recruiting seasons that we've been here at Texas, we have not taken a portal offensive lineman. Now, I don't say that because I'm anti-portal. That's not the case. And I'm not saying that because we never would, because you never say never in any situation. You know, if it's a unique situation, you know, we might do it. It's not the preferred way of doing it at this position. We've done it at other positions at Texas and had a lot of success. It's been really good to us. And I think it will continue to be good to us. I said, but I will say what has allowed me to do that is that our players have stayed within our system. So we've had some really talented players come into our program and not play maybe as much as they anticipated for the first year or two, but they've stayed with us because they believe in the development process from the weight room to the practice field to the game to the game field, and ultimately what's happened in the draft the last couple of years for us, having 4 players drafted in the last 2 years after a long string where at Texas they hadn't had any, so that part for us has been really, really valuable in terms of not having to do that. Because we started this thing with, I think ultimately the best career for a player is to go into a program, to get developed, to work their way through that program, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever that is. We've done a good enough job of saying, okay, hey, these guys are going to develop. These guys are going to be really good players for us. We've had a couple guys who got a little backed up in the depth chart and have gone other places, and that's been good for them, and I'm very happy for them, and we help them. We help them move on. So it kind of works both ways. I don't see a lot of guys that are in the portal that are ultimately at the offensive line position. I'm talking about specifically where I say, okay, hey, can this guy come in here and in 6 months, can he learn everything we do systematically, technique-wise, and can that guy be so much better than the guys on your roster that he's really an upgrade into your team? So, again, I think for the most part, offensive linemen, the really, really quality ones, they're kind of staying where they go.
Part of my work release program is that I'm forced every week to work with a Texas alum, Brian Jones. And it's interesting watching the games with him over these last couple of years, especially as you made the transition to the SEC, because there's a physicality now that exists with Texas that wasn't there before. I'm going to go on record to say that the offensive line, any good team I've ever been on, the offensive line has to set the tone and lead that charge. How is it that you ensure the development of your players from the standpoint of there's no days off in the SEC. There's no weeks off in the SEC. Even if a team is, 2-8, they've still got a front seven that's got dudes on it, and you got to be able to make sure that you show up week to week. Your opener against Ohio State on the road is going to test this new offensive line right out of the gate. From a development standpoint, how do you, as their offensive line coach, get them ready? A lot of guys that are new have been in the program for a while, but don't have the experience of the unit you just had. How do you get a bunch of young bucks that have a ton of potential ready to play on the road at Ohio State in week one?
I'm going to rewind a little bit for a second to answer this question. In 2017 and 18, I was working at the Falcons, and Sark takes the offensive coordinator's job at Alabama. And he says, "Are you interested in coming to Alabama?" And I wasn't really thinking about coming back to college football at this point. I'd only been in the NFL for 2 years. And I said, but having an opportunity to work for Coach Saban, I had a lot of curiosity about, ultimately, what is important to him that has allowed him to be so successful, the most successful college coach of the modern era. I mean, hands down. So I get there, and Coach comes down the hallway. And when Coach Saban comes down the hallway, you kind of hear his shoes. Everybody knows, there's an offensive hallway and a defensive hallway. His office is in the middle, and you kind of know he's coming. You can hear him coming. So he comes down the hallway. He comes to my office, and he says, "Kyle, I want you to remember this." This was very early in my tenure, the first week or two. He says, "We're always going to be young in Alabama, but we're always going to be talented." And that hit me. I'm like, okay, I get it. We're recruiting the best players in the country, which now is very applicable to what we're doing in Texas. And when you do that, guys like Kelvin Banks leave early. Some guys leave after 3 years. And so that happens in a lot of positions. And now you've got another young, talented guy, and how do you get him ready? So that leads me to the answer, because I experienced it there, and now we've had this ability the last couple of years at Texas. You play every day at practice against really good players. And whether that was Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, whether that was Alfred Collins last year, Vernon Broughton, those guys, whoever those guys are, you play against really high-level D linemen in practice. Because if you come to our Tuesday and Wednesday practices, or you come to a training camp practice, it is a war out there. And if you don't come ready to play, you get exposed. And that's what SEC football is like, because there's not a team in the SEC. People have certain opinions about certain teams in this league. I'm just telling you from experience it now, there is not a team in the SEC that doesn't have really talented defensive linemen. And if you don't show up, you get exposed. And that's what we have in practice now. And that's the most valuable thing in terms of developing younger guys and saying, hey, if you can block this guy in practice, the games, you'll block the guy in the game. I promise you that.
I want to ask you about Arch Manning. Got a mobile quarterback there, a lot of expectations. Sounds like you're going to focus on the run game, which is, music to any offensive lineman's heart. But from a standpoint of protection and having him back there as a signal caller, what differences fundamentally and practically are they between yours and what he brings to the table? And does having a quarterback like that, for the average fan that maybe isn't as familiar with what goes on with play calling, position protections, and those sort of things, does having a mobile quarterback back there make an offensive lineman's job easier, harder, or is it a net wash?
Well, I think it could be, again, if just talking in general, I think, mobile quarterbacks can be challenging for offensive lines as well. But I think ultimately they're a net positive, because I think they'll get you out of more problems than they'll cause the guys that are athletic. Similar to kind of the offensive line conversation we had, Arch has been with us for 2 years. He's going into his third year. So I think, for us, from a protection standpoint, there's nothing we did last year with Quinn that we don't think we can do with Arch. That part is a real blessing for us. to have a quarterback who's been in our system now for 3 years, and he's really bright. And he's the only quarterback that I've ever been involved with in the recruiting process that is asked to have a protection meeting. And I remember we had a full protection meeting with Arch and Coop when he was on our campus one time. And I thought that was really insightful that he understood. Now, I'm sure his uncles and his family, his grandfather had something to do with that. Like he's got an appreciation for protection that is at a higher level than I think most of the guys that I've worked with in college, certainly at a young age. They figured out pretty quick that it's important. But I think that part's going to be certainly a net positive for us.
What type of dude is he? What type of relationship does he have with your room?
Oh, he's great. He's just, I know he's Arch Manning, right? He's got the name and all that stuff, but he's really a great teammate. It's you asked about Sark's superpower. That's his superpower. Is he's as down to earth and as good a teammate as we have in that locker room, and the guys love him. So he's got a great relationship with those guys. They go to dinner, and so he's phenomenal.
This is admittedly a self-serving question, but I get so close to this thing sometimes, and I'm the gap stop. I chalk the fields. I wash the uniforms. I pump up the footballs. I'm drawing up plays. Like, we're a very small team, and it's become amongst the best things I've ever done in my life. I'm curious, being on the other side of it, winning it in 2020, being a finalist last year, but just on the text threads, what the award means to the O-line community.
I think, like, if you look at it, like over the years, there have been some great things that have happened to the offensive line position. Like the first great thing was probably the ability to use our hands. I talk to the old guy. We have some guys come back at Texas who played in the Bob McKay, who played here years ago in the national championship team back in the 70s. He said he watches our practice. I don't know how you coach any of this stuff. We didn't do anything like that. Everything was like this. So then the pads got a little smaller and more effective. So you didn't have these gigantic pads so defensive linemen couldn't grab you all the time. So that helped a little bit too. But in recent years, the Joe Moore Award to me has been the best thing that's happened to the offensive line position community, because it doesn't just shine light on the greatness of a player. It shines light on what we already know is really important. It's your ability to work with other people, and that skill is valuable for the rest of your life. So I think for us as coaches, we talk about it in the preseason. We don't talk about it once the season starts, but we talk about it in the preseason. If you ask my players what their goals are, national championship will be right at the top. SEC championship, Joe Moore Award. Like that's the kind of the goal system for what we're trying to accomplish. Now, winning the Joe Moore Award means you're playing at a high level. It certainly helps those other two things happen.
Oh, look at you. You made it all the way to the end, grinding through like it's play 18 to 9-on-7. So pancake that subscribe, smash that like button, and pull around the corner to share this with your buddy. Trent's life rolls best when the whole crew's in the huddle.